Hey developers, today we're going to look at a fundamental piece of Vue.js called props. Now, for those of you who don't know, props are a way that we can pass information from a parent component to a child component. And there's a few nuances and a few things I want to describe to you guys so you guys can be experts in using props. Oh yeah, and this is a new series I'm trying. I want to try to do this in 10 minutes so that way you can get a good foundation of how to use props pretty quickly in this video. Hey, and if you don't know, my name is Eric. I'm a full stack software developer. I'm also a big fan of Vue.js, React, Angular, Node, Dino. If you guys like those type of videos, make sure you smash that like button and also click that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Hey, and before we get too far, let's have a quick word from our sponsor. I just want to take a moment and thank our sponsor, .tech Domains. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably love domain names and you love to buy ones that are short and relevant, but also most importantly, available. And that's what's really cool about .tech Domains. There's a ton of really cool domains available. And the .tech domain is broad enough that you can kind of understand that this is technology related as well. A lot of really cool sites are using .tech domains like Hollywood.tech, Viacom.tech, even personal sites like AustinEvans.tech. So if you guys are interested and you want to search for a really cool domain name, go to go.tech/Erik and then search for your domain name. If you end up buying it, you actually get up to 80% off on 1-year and 5-year domains. So go to go.tech/Erik and go ahead and pick up that domain name. Thanks. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. We have Hello World here. This is a very simple button. It doesn't really do anything. If I click on it, nothing happens. But the idea is this app is the parent component, and all it has is one component called button, and button is right over here, and it just has some text in it. So let's say for the very simplest example, we want to actually show something passed from this parent component, the app view, to our child component. And I think of no other easiest thing to do than change the text of the button. So to do that, let's go inside here. So now first we need to send something down. So we have this button component here. So I'm going to type in button-text and then what I want to pass to it. So I'm going to pass in hi from parent. Now you can notice here, by the way, anytime you're adding in attributes in HTML, the recommendation from Vue is to put it in what this is called kebab case. Kebab case is you have this dash in between, so every word has like a dash and it's all lowercase. So this is kebab case. Now in our button view, since we want to retrieve or receive this from our parent component, we're going to use this simplest form of props. Don't worry about the error right there. And we're going to do button and text. And since we're using this inside Vue here, not on the attribute of an HTML element, we're using camel case. Camel case means that the first case is lowercase, every other word is uppercase. And now I can add this to this button. So instead of having hello world here, I'll do button text. I'll save it. Cool, so now we have completed our very first props. So if you're listening and you've been watching all the way to this part, go ahead and give yourself a pat on your back. You did it, congratulations. But obviously, there's more to props than just this. So let's see if we can bind something to our props. So instead of having props here, we can use something called vbind, and then we can bind values from our export default, or basically from our data, or a few other places, but we'll just assume data, and then we can actually pass it in. Well, first, I can actually do quotes right here, because basically this is an expression at this point, and then put in hi. And it works, because basically it's interpreting everything between the opening and closing brackets, not brackets, but quotations as an expression, so we're just passing in this string. Also, the vbind here is completely optional, so we can delete the vbind out and just have colon and it still works. But obviously this isn't very useful. This isn't much different than having just the colon without having the colon there. So, but we could do something with the data object. So let's say we had a data object and we want to pass in, and I'm going to create this really quickly, something that passes something in here. I don't know, we'll call it text hi from data, and now we have this new text property which we can now pass in here. So there we go. Button text is, which we'll call it not data, but text. Cool, high from data. So it's taking everything out of this data object that we created, and it's passing it in here. We could also have this, now since it's this data object here, we could have something like just changes the text to it. I don't know. Let's see, we have another button here, press me, and this button here had a click event on it, and inside there we just change text equals Erik. There we go. So now it changed the text to Erik. But cool. So that's how you do that. Now, what happens if we want to do a little bit of validation on this button here? So there's a few ways of doing props. This is just, you can set an array of props like this, and we can just pass as many of them as we want. Maybe we have a color one, maybe we have a test one, whatever we want here. But what happens if we wanted to like put required or default values for this? Well, we can do that too. First, instead of having an array, with this button text, we can define it this way as well. So we can do button text here, and then we can just put in what it is, a string. And then this will do a check to make sure it's a string. Now, I think in this code editor, I think it would show up here in the console if there's any problems. But let's say instead I sent a string. I sent, I don't know, maybe I sent a number instead. Let's see here. Instead of the string, I sent a number. Now I get a warning in the console that says invalid prop. Type check failed for prop button text. Expected string value 3 but got number value 3. So that's one way of enforcing that. So now you know you have to pass in a string. But what happens if we want to do like a required on this? So by the way, there is a bunch of types too. There's string, number, object array. There's a handful of ones you can find in the official documentation. But I can actually make an object out of this. And now I can kind of define more things. So first, I can type its type. I can put the string in again. But now I can do required equals true. So if I do required equals true, it'll give us an error if for some reason we don't pass anything in here. So if I don't put the button text at all inside here, there we go. It says missing required prop button text. So you can see definitely it gives us an error that the button text isn't there. So let's go ahead and put the button text back and have it bound to this text right here. Actually, we'll bind it. Cool, so we can change this again to, okay, so now what we can do is we have required here, but what happens if we want to put a default value? We can even do default here and put in default button. So now if we save this and we go back to app and let's comment that out and put this back in without any text. Now we have default button with the default button text, which is really cool. Nice. So a couple of other things. What happens if we want to change this value? Now, props are defined as being one-way data bound, so you can't actually change them. But you could do things like this. So instead of having the prop here, I can make a computed property. And the computed property, I could, if I could type right, I can create some sort of value here, like let's say full text. And the full text is going to return this dot button text plus full text. And now instead of having button text up here, I can put in full text. Oops, let me put this back. Save it. Okay, cool. So it went ahead and updated. So now we have, basically we're taking something from the computed and adding this button text. And we could do the same thing if we wanted to add like a counter or something else, but we can't change this button text directly. All we can do is use something like a computed property and then make changes or updates to it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Props, those are the basics of starting off with props. I would recommend, if you are using them, to use them as objects. So make sure you define the type, the required, and default. And by the way, if you're using an object, you have to set a function up in the default. if you're using that. And also, you could do it with strings too. So I'll just show you real quickly. If you want to have this be like some sort of function, you can return back on this is the default text. Actually, we can even do ES6 here. We can just get rid of the return. And this is it. And now if I go back here and I don't actually pass in the text at all, if I don't even pass in this, and I come back here and I did get rid of required true, now you can see this is the default text is there. So it's actually passing it as a function too. And by the way, you can create your own validations too, but we're running out of time. So let me know what you think about this format in the comments below. Thanks.